Alright, here's my plan for today. I broke a couple arrows. The tips just kind of like snapped off in foam, and it happened on the same round, same end. So I don't think I can trust those arrows anymore. I mean, they're kind of old anyways, but they all, I think I've got a couple right here. They all snapped off right where the insert meets the carbon, basically. So what my arrow was last year, right here, was an Easton Axis 5mm, boning vanes, but on the business end, it was 100 grain field point broadhead, and then a 75 grain brass insert chopped down to 50. So these right here with this snapped off. And the reason why I'm sort of going away from this is because when you put these in the shaft, so when you put these brass inserts in, they're sort of down in the shaft like this, so that they can make contact with the thread on your field tip or your broadhead. Okay, right there, which leaves a little gap here where it's just carbon married flush with your broadhead or field tip, and that's the part that keeps snapping off. I've had several arrows. I've had several arrows just snap and just fail at that part, and I don't think it has anything to do with the insert itself. I think it has to do with the space in between where it's just carbon there, and there's nothing to keep it rigid, keep it sturdy, keep it supported. So I don't know, when you've got a projectile like that with some heavy weight on the front, if that weight is loose at all, it'll just fail and snap off. So that's sort of the reason why I'm changing up my setup this year. I'm not going to go crazy and get an 800 grain arrow or anything like that, but I do want a heavier weight on the front of my arrow, and I want to change up the broadhead as well, because I've been going with these are the QAD Exodus, and I've heard they're really good, but the issue that I've had, and I've never gotten an animal with one of these, the issue that I had was when you shoot them into foam, they immediately go dull. I mean, and they're like razor blades. They're like the X-Acto blades that come out of the X-Acto knife. They're very, very thin, and they're sharp, but the edge on them is, the bevel on them is very, very extreme. So it's really hard to sharpen them, and I want to go towards a broadhead that's going to be designed to last longer, and I just don't. They just seem kind of, I don't know, they just seem kind of flimsy, and they're very fragile, I feel like, and they're only, I feel like they're only designed to be used once. Like, maybe you can use them again, and maybe some other people don't have issues with sharpening them, but I'm just kind of going towards the two blade system of broadhead, so that I can resharpen them, and I have all the stuff I need to sharpen, and I want to be able to sharpen them in the field without bringing in a bunch of equipment, and I want to get them to be razor sharp, and I feel like these weren't exactly razor sharp when they came out of the box. So I mean, it's whatever. I've heard they're pretty good, and I have no experience with what happens when one of these hits an animal, but I'm just going away from it just because of what I want in a broadhead and the research being done in the hunting industry, especially when it comes to arrows and projectile. Which means that this shaft, which is a 300 spine, it's been great. They've tuned really well. They have flown really well right out of the box, and they've been really, really reliable. And I went out to 150 yards, and they were very, very good. This means that I'm going to have to switch to a stiffer spine, though, increasing not only the insert weight, but the field point broadhead, the tip weight, is going to necessitate a stiffer arrow and a change in the spine. The new components that I'm going to be working with are first and foremost a 260 shaft. This is 29 inches carbon to carbon just because of my draw length on my bow, and it's going to be 11.5 grains per inch. Stiffer the spine, the heavier the shaft is going to be, and going away from those brass inserts that leave a little bit of space in between. I really want to go away from that just because of the arrows that I've had fail, and all of the failures have been that portion right there, which I really don't like. And it's been going into foam, and I don't know, I kind of want something more rigid and more sturdy if it's going to pass through an animal, bone, muscle, stuff like that. So I've gone with a half out, and this is a 75 grain stainless steel half out insert. It's going to go in like that. And then 150 grain field point / broadhead. So that increases the FOC quite a bit, and increases the overall weight of the arrow by quite a bit. I'm adding 25 grains in the insert weight, and then 50 grains in the point tip weight. So that's an extra 75 grains that's going to be added to the front of the arrow. And it's going to be added further forward of the arrow as well. So otherwise, I'm not really going to change anything. The vanes are going to stay the same. They're going to be blazers, the Bohning Blazers. Don't really see a need to change the vanes. Besides maybe, and I'm going to have to test the broadhead at some point to make sure that it flies correctly, and the only change that I could see making would be to change to a 4-fletch instead of a 3. But I mean, I've got a pretty steep right helical on my vanes right now, so it provides quite a bit of stability. I think that's everything that I'm going to change. And I'm doing it in June so that I have plenty of time to play around with it. I've got 8 shafts, and I'm probably only going to make 5 shafts so that I have, math is hard, 3 shafts left for if one of them breaks, to keep brand new, so that if these arrows get old and I shoot them way too much, then I can just go to my fresh arrows right before hunting season, make sure that they're all good to go. And the only other change I'm going to make in the process is I'm not going to use epoxy this year, and I've got some hot melt, so I'll experiment with that a little bit. So anyways, I've talked for way too long again, so I'm just going to start building it. So here is basically the finished product. You got 150 grain tip, you got a 75 grain insert, the 260 spined arrow shaft, Axis 5mm, and then Bohning Blazer vanes, and then I'm going to put a Nockturnal Lighted Nock right up here. I haven't really noticed the difference between these Nocks and the Nockturnals. I've taken both out to a pretty long distance, and I didn't really notice a difference. So I don't know. There is one issue, however, and it is this helix fletching jig. You get a lot of buildup of vane glue on these, and it just sticks on there, and I've tried to clean them off with acetone. I've seen something where you soak them in acetone, but I don't really know. But the issue is that you get a huge amount of buildup of vane glue on the vanes themselves, and I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it, but you got a lot of buildup of glue on there, and it's just really inconsistent. I mean, the height is always inconsistent as well, I've found on this thing, and then I think the biggest problem is that once you get a little bit too much buildup, it starts to harden on the jig and then affect where the vane goes on it. So it's got this little, on this vane you can really tell, but it's sort of, it's supposed to be, in a helix all the way, but here towards the end, it goes off to the left pretty badly, and I don't really know how much that's going to affect aeroflight. It probably will. The glue hasn't seemed to, the excess buildup of glue hasn't really seemed to affect the arrow, but I'm going to have to get a new jig, and I think that a jig that does them one at a time, it may take more time, but it'll offer a little bit more control, and while it's clamped onto the shaft, I can start cleaning up some of the excess glue that comes off the vanes and squeezes out. But that is the finished product. Doesn't look a whole lot different than what I was using last year, but the components and weight of it is going to be very, very different. Right there's where it balances. So get a new jig and then see if these things fly straight. So that's it for me. We'll see ya.